Hey, what's up, guys? You're listening to the It Takes a Village podcast. I'm Ashley, your host. This is where the struggles are real, the callings are heavy, the kids are sticky. We come together because it takes a village, and this is your tribe. Hey, what's up, everybody? You're listening to the It Takes a Village podcast, episode 63, and today I'm hanging out with Courtney Harris, who is a skilled parent coach, parent educator, and she specializes in guiding parents through their ongoing process of being in a relationship with your kiddo, which you know can be stressful, especially as they get older and into those teen and tween years. And so Courtney has been doing this for over 10 years and has helped over 1,000 teenagers. And so today we're going to be talking about dealing with, or actually navigating, our teenagers' friendships, their tween friendships, as they're growing, and how we can stay in the know, how we can help them navigate through the changes that friendships go when, how it evolves from elementary, their level, the things that they talk about, the way that they connect with each other is so different from when they're in elementary to then when they're in junior high and high school. And so Courtney's going to kind of give us some advice and some tips on how to stay connected with them and not get shut out, how to, know how to approach them with certain things and talk to them about friendships. And so I'm really excited for you guys to hear this. I was loving all the information she shared, so I can't wait to share this episode with you guys. Let's get to it. Hey, Courtney, I am super excited to talk to you and have you on the podcast because we are going to talk about, basically for me, it's an uncharted territory. And I'm kind of close. My daughter's about to turn 8, so we're getting into close to sort of the tween years. And so I'm really excited to get into this topic of teens and tweens with you. So thanks for being on.
Thanks so much for having me. I love the podcast, love what you're putting out there, Ashley, and it's great to talk with you today.
So before we get started, I always kind of want to give the guests an idea of who it is that I'm talking to, like what they do, what they're about. So if you could share just a little bit about who you are, and maybe a little bit about life right now, that would be awesome.
Okay, awesome. So I am a child-centered coach, and my business is called Courtney Harris Coaching. And when I say child-centered, what that means is that I actually work directly with teens and tweens and young adults as well as their parents. And so I know that there's a lot of parenting coaches out there that are doing amazing and important work, but mine is a little bit different of a spin because of the direct work with the teen or tween. And really, the work that we're doing is all about growing a healthy and strong voice and a sense of empowerment and exploring emotional intelligence. And through this work, families are able to find deeper communication and connection and trust. And so it's really a beautiful process also of when I work with parents, I'm guiding them on supporting the process that their child is building. And so that's really where that crossover comes in and where the connection happens. So it's very special work. It's deep work because it's family systems. It's looking at what's going on. And, as adults, we're carrying around a lot of patterns and stories that we've been living for a long time. And then when we have young people in our homes and we're raising children, we're bringing our layers into the new layers that we're helping them build. And so it's big work. And I'm just so proud of all of the clients that I get to work with because I know that they're taking massive steps to their personal growth and the growth of their families.
Right. And some of those things that we bring to the table as parents are not always positive things moving forward. And I feel like this is that scary kind of space where we either had parents that when we were starting to get older, we kind of drifted in our separate ways of like communication, connection, and relation, like being able to relate to one another. And so I feel like parents of tweens and teens, we can feel like fearful and uncertain and kind of isolated as like our child begins to, because they do kind of grow away from us. They're not as needy anymore, to where they're starting to identify more with, their friends and, they're seeking that social approval. And so I think that this is such an awesome space that you're in. And also, man, we need your help. I'm like,
well, thank you.
as I was a teenager, if I feel like it would have been so beneficial to have that guidance, not only for me, like how to talk to my mom or my dad, but also like vice versa for my parents to be able to come to me and just to have that healthy communication and connection going on. So we want to talk about, though, today about our teens and tweens and their friendships that they're having, because, man, like when I think back to high school, junior high, like it's rough. It's rough out there.
Mm-hmm, totally.
So how can we really help our teens and tweens today? Because when I think about when I was in school, it was hard enough as it was, and social media wasn't a thing, but now it is a thing. And I'm thinking about my daughter going into junior high, and there's Instagram and Facebook, and it's all about the likes, it's all about the comments. So how do we help guide our children to think of friendships as more than just like, likes from their peers and comments on their Instagram from their friends and that sort of thing?
Totally. Yes. So you are getting into some big stuff, and it's important. So, I first wanted to just go back to your point about really the teenage development, and that for parents of teens and tweens, you are not alone. And it is so normal to feel those fears of, oh my goodness, my child is looking away from the family, looking to their peers for attention and approval. And that truly is developmentally appropriate. Really looking to our peer groups is something that it's a natural developmental stage, but we can start to get into some sort of dangerous or scary areas there, like you mentioned, where right now, especially with this social media lifestyle, there is so much looking to the outside that there's almost a forgetting of what's on the inside. And so this speaks so much to me too. And the way really some of the foundations of the work that I do come from my own teenage years as well, of knowing that I was looking to the outside. I was, I'm going to get straight A's, and I'm playing basketball and volleyball, and I have this boyfriend, and it was all these things that just felt like, okay, check, check, check. I'm doing what the world says I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm looking to the outside to find my sense of self-worth. And so the work that I do brings us back a lot to tuning into what's actually happening in our physical bodies and in our emotional bodies, because we've lost touch with that a lot. I mean, and this is our teens and tweens, but this is us too, because we're on the social media and we're doing all the same things that they're doing. It just wasn't part of our childhood necessarily. So to then steer more into this direction of friendship, I mean, I have tons of tools that I share with parents. I've done many workshops about helping our teenagers build happy and healthy friendships. But one of my favorite activities that I really want to make sure to mention today is, as adults, taking the time today, or taking the time when you're journaling next, and actually write out, what does a happy and healthy friendship look like, sound like, and feel like? And I ask parents that I work with to do this, because when I do this, because I do it every time that I ask clients to do this, I realize that it's actually not that different. What I want a happy and healthy friendship to look like is not different than what my teenage clients say. And it helps me to step into this space of really just being compassionate towards the teenagers that I work with. And that's a massive recommendation and a tool for parents to use to operate from this place of, I get it, I've been there, and stepping into the feels of all of that.
Yeah. What if our teens or tweens have like a different idea? Like, what if we as parents want something else and they want something else? How do we compromise or figure out how to make it work?
Right. So that is challenging, really challenging, especially when it becomes something where the parent might be feeling like their job is to do some limit setting and boundaries. But this goes to some of the other foundational pieces that I do with parents is defining friendship loosely. And for parents to kind of adopt that idea that friendship can come in many forms and fashions, right? We might have friends that we see in our workplace, or we might have friends that are long distance that we talk to every week. Mm-hmm. But we also might call someone that knows our name at the coffee shop a friend. And so I teach parents to present to their children that friendship is not just what we see in the movies mm-hmm. or what we see on social media, and that it's really a process that we're always in progress with.
Yeah.
And so this allows the space for all types of friendship, and this allows the space to know that what is a friendship right now can change form, and not in the way that, not in the way that we don't believe that friendships can be lasting, but more just that there is more freedom than I think we often believe, especially in those teen and tween years mm-hmm. when we have kind of one ideal.
Yeah.
So I think that conversation can help get to that maybe difference of opinions that teenagers and their parents might have. Is just literally having conversation about what friendship means can be a great starting point.
Yeah, and I've already seen some of those conversations kind of spark up with my daughter and I. And like I said, she's only about to turn 8, but even so far, like some of the friends that she's had, last year are not as close as the ones that she has this year. And so we've talked about how, you guys are still friends. That's just not your friend that you go to, to talk to for encouragement, or that you have, all these things in common. Like, it's nice to play with them every once in a while, but, this new friend that you have now is, your best, not, I don't know, we don't even talk about best yes. friends, but, just telling her, like, everybody can be your friend. There's just different yes. levels of, like, who you go to for what, and who you're closest to, who you're telling your most important feelings to, and all those things. It's just so crazy how early it starts, that they start to, like, change and evolve, and their, friend issues come up. And I think as parents, that's like the most stressful thing, is that we want to protect our kids, and we don't want to see them get hurt. And so I think that is the next question that I wanted to ask you, is how to, like, guide our kids, our teens, our tweens, as they're getting older. And like you said, they're maturing and they're changing all the time. And so conflicts can happen, friendships change. How can we support our kids in times of, like, when things are changing, or when there's conflicts mm-hmm. coming up between their friends?
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear, thank you for sharing an example of what this looks like in real life and the conversation you had with your daughter. And I think to shift from there into this idea of how do we manage friendships from a place that feels really good and healthy inside. And one piece of that is a constant and ongoing conversation of needs. And what I mean by this is really teaching your young person, this doesn't have to just be teen or tween, this can be your young children, but teaching them about recognizing their needs. And of course, this starts really basic, right? Our children are, from a young age, like pointing towards foods, crying when they're hungry. This starts. But we can sometimes, as children gain more language, it can actually get harder to assert their needs because of this, whatever, we get fearful, or we're not sure how to be in more of a social setting, right? Mm-hmm. So that's when sometimes we lose that inner voice of asserting our needs. So talking about it, and even doing things like taking the 5 love languages quiz, and there's a version for kids and there's a version for teens, and that can be a great tool to then just start the conversation of, what do you need? What do you value? And making that a part of everyday conversation. Mm. Another thing I would say is just this constant teaching and modeling of emotional intelligence. And this can come through just, for example, if the parent has a conflict with a friend, they might share that. Oh, I'm really feeling a little bit sad about the way that I didn't get invited to so-and-so's gathering. Mm-hmm. That really made me feel sad. And sharing that process of identifying the feeling and naming what it's attached to. Then the layer after we've been doing some of that modeling is we can ask our teens and tweens things like, where do you what do you feel most in your friendship with so and so? Like, what feelings do you have when you think of that friendship? Or if we see that they're sharing a story and we can sense an emotion, we might ask, where are you feeling that in your body? Where are you feeling that sensation? And what emotion do you think is behind that? So asking these sort of open-ended questions that help our teens and tweens check in with their body, check in with their spirit of what's happening. And then this foundation actually helps them. Like if they know that they feel nervous around a certain person, they might actually recognize that's not fulfilling my needs to be around this person. I need some space from them.
Yeah.
Or so it's again just like nurturing and nourishing that inner voice is what helps them to actually go out into the world and set the boundaries that feel healthy and to put more investment and time into the friendships that do feel healthy.
So what is the most common thing that you find teens and tweens coming to you for guidance, or something that like the common thread that they're struggling with that you are helping them through?
So right now there is a lot of my clients have this sense of isolation, of almost like nobody gets me. I don't really know how to connect with people. And there's a lot of science right now. I've also done a class about teens and technology. And so there's a lot of data about the ways that even though we are now technically, funny play on words, technically more connected than ever.
Right.
Our young people are spending more time in their bedrooms alone than ever before. So there's more of the connecting through social media, but less in real life or in person connecting. And so I do have a lot of teenagers that don't feel confident in their in-person connections, not quite sure how to even sometimes start a connection or find a commonality. Because, if they're on YouTube and they're following the same vlogger or they're playing the same video game with someone, there's already a common thread and they know how to get the conversation going, right? We're going to talk about the game, or we're going to talk about this vlogger. But when it comes to sitting next to someone in your science class, it's like, wait, what do I do?
Yeah.
And of course, I'm painting the picture in more of an extreme way, but the root of this really about that sense, that feeling of isolation and not feeling strong in building connections in real life is a huge area that I see teens struggling and having a hard time with right now.
Yeah, and that's so funny. Well, I mean, it's not funny, but that's it's such a coincidence that you bring this up, because that was one of my questions is, like when our kids are younger, it's kind of like on us, we take them to play dates and we, there's, they're not feeling those heightened sense of like insecurity and comparison when they're littler. And so like when we take them to the park, when we take them to the play, to the play date, they easily make friends when they're younger. But then when they get older, it's like, what do I do? Or they don't know how to transfer that of like, hey, I can like, all these people's comments from my high school, or all these people's photos from my high school on Facebook or Instagram. But like you said, then they don't know how to then engage with them in like real life. So how can we help our children with friends and feeling less insecure? Like, how can we help them in those like in-person social settings?
So one practice that I've been working with lately is what I call the 3 C's. So it's every night the teenager writes down a connection that they had, something that brought them a sense of confidence, and then a call to action or a small, very small goal that they want to make for the next day. And so this is a way of reframing that there already are a lot of connections happening. We just need to grow them, because when I say they don't know how to connect, I don't actually believe that our teenagers don't know how to connect, but they think they don't know how, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
we've been building this other story of like, oh, that's too scary. That's too hard. And I do this too. Like I'm grown and I do this. My
Yeah.
brain is fully developed and I do this. So that practice is a way to reframe, first of all, hey, I am making connections. Remember when this person in English class said, what's up to me? Like that's actually a connection. So writing that down as a way to see, okay, this is happening. How can I grow it? Then the confidence, that can come in so many forms. You know, when I've been doing this with clients, I've seen things from I decided to sign up for a new club. That made me confident to a teacher stopped me at the door and said hello to me. That made me feel confident to I had a high score on my math test, right? Like it could be anything. But what's a way that you felt a light inside of you and something that just made you feel like, oh, I did it.
Yeah.
And then the last one is the call to action. And I set this because if I do this journaling practice at night, I'm setting myself up for something to do the next day. And it's almost like that sleep on it is kind of a real thing, that you set that intention, then you let it kind of soak in. And then the next day you wake up with this intention or this call to action of, I'm going to say hi to somebody in my class, or I'm going to try sitting with a new group at the lunchroom, or I'm just going to reach out to a friend that I talk with, but we don't spend time with outside of school. Let's make that happen. And that's been a really cool tool to see young people actually be able to start making their own shifts. And so I give that and I offer that to parents listening to try that. I mean, try it yourself, try teaching it to your teens. And it's a powerful way to shift our mindsets.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, like, you know, when you have kind of a wall in your way of, you know, something that you're trying to achieve, if you don't have like the steps, then you don't know like what you're doing. And I think that these 3 C's are like the easy, like, here's your blueprint, like, here's your plan.
Yes.
Now, because, you know, you can say, oh, well, like, try to be more friendly, and then they're like, well, what the heck do I like, what the heck does that mean, you know? Or like and so I think that is genius, the 3 C's. That's awesome. It also makes me think of a flip side. As we are raising our kids, like, not only do we want to encourage them and teach them how to make friends or communicate and be aware of their emotions, but it also makes me think about how I'm raising my daughter to be somebody who is an includer. So it makes me think of like, hey, when you're passing by people in the hallway, like, why don't you say hi? Or like, you know, smile at them, or say, hey, what, you know, how's it going? How's your day? Or whatever. Because I feel like if we're working at both ends, then maybe there will be less of, you know, children feeling isolated, and more children knowing how to engage, because, you know, every day they're saying hi to people, to where it's not scary anymore. It's not hard to go deeper. I don't know. I just feel like.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, and like you said, if they're doing it every day, it makes me just think of the word practice. And life is practice, you know, like we don't just get to the final goal and think like, oh, I mastered it, I know how to do this. Every day we're just practicing. And so friendship is like that. And so I love that you mentioned talking about that. And it makes me think back to that conversation about emotional intelligence of like asking our kid, how does it feel when someone that you walk by smiles at you? And so if they can own, oh, that feels really warm, or that feels friendly, it feels nice, then they're internalizing that and can also put that out into the world, or give that, right? So learning how to receive and to give, I think, is really powerful. And I appreciate you mentioning that. That's a great example.
Do you ever find that parents are coming to you with concerns about how to know what their kids are doing in their social circles?
Yes, for sure. It's much harder now because, sure, there's apps and things that parents can do to actually see the inner working, so to speak, of their teens' phones and what they're doing.
Yeah.
But that has, in any situation that I've been able to observe, that it's basically eliminated trust in the relationship. And so I can see that in some situations that may need to happen. It may need to be a boundary that's drawn for a teenager's safety. But I definitely, with parents that come with that concern, that's the work that we do longer term. And just, that's where I become the partner to both the parent and to the teenager and helping them reestablish and rebuild the communication so that both people in this partnership feel heard and feel seen and also feel accepted. Because, of course, teenagers often feel like, oh, my parents don't like my friends. And that feels super personal to teenagers. But then parents are so worried. And sure, there is plenty for them to be worried about. Yes, we've lived through it ourselves, so we understand that there's some things to be worried about. But it's really about being able to keep coming back to this process of what I call it with families is co-creating. So co-creating their norms and co-creating the routines that help each person feel heard and seen. And it takes time. That's not going to happen overnight. And like the questions that I shared for the emotional intelligence piece, I recommend parents to do their best to use open-ended questions as often as they can. So if there's a boundary that the parent is going to draw, or there's an expectation that the parent has, like, oh, we are going to have family time this weekend. Not just saying to the teenager, we're having family time at this time, doing this thing, saying, how would you like to spend some time together as a family? And yes, believe me, I know that sometimes at first you're going to get shoulder shrugs or refusals.
Right.
But my advice to parents on this one is keep showing up with that and know that you're not alone. Know that it is a process, and it's going to take a little while for your teenager or tween to know that they do have agency and they do have ability to make change in the family and that their voice matters, and they just need to find a healthy way to voice it. And so totally a process, but that's a great starting point is those open-ended questions.
Yeah. And that, I think that's going to take, like, even as I'm thinking of myself moving forward, those types of questions for me are going to take practice.
Yes.
I'm like,
yes.
So I'm probably going to mess that up many times before I get it right. But, I think that is a really good, and I think that if we look back to when we were teens, it was those times when our parents didn't have that open-ended questioning,
Yes.
where it's like, you're going to do this at this time, and we're going to do this, and we're going to have fun, and, you're going to like it. And then you're like, no, like, every bone in your body is like, you can't make me. I will hate it the entire time. Those are like, and then now that we're parents, we're like, oh my gosh, like, we don't want to do those same things. And we're terrified that, our teens are going to act the same way towards us that we did to our parents. For some of us, maybe maybe it wasn't like that, but what would be like your main tip for all the parents listening, for them to walk away with? Because I feel like this is such I'm terrified. I'm like, this is such a scary topic. But we don't want our teens, we don't want to get to that point to where we're coming to you and we're saying, I'm shut out. Like, I'm shut out. I can't connect with them. I don't know what they're doing with their friends. So what would be if you have like one big tip, to prevent us from getting to that point?
It's interesting because when you said tips, I kind of more went into like mindset, or I don't know that they're tips. Okay. And I've even said this phrase a few times, but just knowing you're not alone.
Yeah.
Knowing that it's a process. And then I guess this one is a tip, but when you listen to yourself as a parent and you truly have a concern, trust yourself, and it's okay. Go get help, right? Like, go talk to the school counselor, go talk to your teenagers' teachers, reach out to work with a coach like me, reach out and seek therapy. Like, it is okay, because it's normal for us to need help in life. And I think, that would be my tip, is just that you don't have to do it alone. You are not alone. it is not abnormal. It is not shameful to need help in this time of parenting. And it's also normal for teenagers to need help in this time of developing. And so I would say that's actually part of my bigger mission, is just normalizing this idea of seeking help. And I think your podcast is a beautiful way of showing that. You know, you share stories of your life and you have guests that share tools and help us understand that it's just hard. It's hard to be human, but it's also so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And so if we can just embrace all of that, it helps it make it easier to reach out and to connect when we are in need.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of the times, I mean, even as women, as we get older and moms, like, we still struggle with friendships. And so,
yes,
man, like, this is, I mean, just like you said, where it's just it's hard to be human, and we are human and we're going to make mistakes. But I feel like also it's hard for us to wrap our mind around the fact that we can get help for our teens, like, in these situations. And it doesn't, I feel like on TV or, you know, basically how we grew up, it's like, oh, when it gets so bad, then we go get help. You know, when our kids, like, dealing drugs or, like, going to jail or, you know.
Right, the worst of it.
The worst, right. But I think that realizing that we can get help a lot sooner, and also that it doesn't just stop at our teen. Like when you were saying, you know, go talk to their teachers, go talk to their counselor. I feel like that wasn't something that our parents would have done back then, or that wasn't a common thing. It was like there was separation between school and home, to where now, man, we have access to, like, everything and everybody.
Yes.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, and I'm a big advocate for that. Just as many people that can send love and care to our teenagers, the better, right? So if we know our teenager is kind of in a rough patch, or maybe they're spending a lot of time alone, we're a little concerned, and we give, or maybe they're defeated about school, like feeling like they just can't do it. And parents go and tell their teacher, you know, tell their kids' teachers, hey, just, you know, he could use a little extra encouragement, or can you check in with her about the deadline? I think she's really stressed. Our children notice those moments when they are seen and when they are heard, and it does make a difference. And so if they have, you know, 5 teachers or even 1 teacher, or they have an aunt or an uncle or any other type of mentor that is giving them an extra boost, an extra dose of encouragement, it's key. It's so helpful, because sometimes when it comes from parents, there's a little bit too much emotional history and they might write it off, or I'm not saying to stop it. Keep it going for sure, but know that other people can be a part of that team of support as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because there are many times where, you know, even today, and my husband will laugh at this, but, like, he'll give me advice and then I'll be like, you know, I don't know, you know, and I'll just shrug it off. And then somebody, like one of my friends or somebody that I really, you know, look up to will come around and give me the same advice. And then when they say it, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to do that. And then my husband's like, I just told you that. Like, so I feel like there is something about, like, being somebody who's outside, maybe, you know, outside of the little circle or whatever. This is so good. These are everything that you've said has been so helpful to me, and I'm not even there yet. Now I feel like a little bit more prepared, so that's awesome. I know, mission accomplished. I always wonder, this is something that is totally off, working with teens, speaking on their behalf. If you think that there was one thing that they would want their parents to know, what do you think that one thing would be?
I want to be accepted. Yeah. Or I want to be loved as I am.
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes we forget what it was like being a teen. And somebody had said this on a episode, you know, a month ago or so, but she was saying about her toddler that, you know, to him, things are a big deal because he's like 2. Like for me, it makes sense. Like, you know, as a mom, I'm like, come on, you just gotta, you know, take one more step, or, you know, if you don't want your snacks to spill out of your cup, don't tip it over, you know, you know, and so then it makes me, for some reason that's coming to my mind now, is like, we were only a teenager once. Like we were only 16 once, and that was completely new to us. That was like new territory. And so like, man, to like give our own children that same empathy of like, they're only 16 one time.
Totally.
They've never been 16 before. So this is insanely new and scary and, you know, uncharted territories for them.
Yes. And actually, as you're saying that, I just wrote a piece about a practice that I do because I actually have had quite a bit of trauma and stress from my teenage years that I've been recovering from for years. Mm-hmm. And so this practice is taken from Louise Hay's inner child work, but I basically call it loving your teenage self. And so if I can sit in meditation or journaling and just imagine 16-year-old me struggling, right? Like struggling to get the straight A's and to be accepted and stressed out. And I can just shower her with love and tell her, you are safe, you are okay, you are going to become a beautiful adult. This is not forever, you know, and just tell her just so many encouragements and kind words. Mm-hmm. That is a practice that has helped me heal some of my own traumas and struggles in a way that allows me to be more present and more compassionate with the teenagers that I work with. And that's another tool for parents is like meditate on and love your teenage self, and then take that energy and that love that you're giving to her or to him, and then share it with your teen, your actual human being child who's a teenager, and like give them that love and encouragement, or at least you come and operate from that place of compassion.
Oh, that's so good. I need to do that for myself too.
Oh yeah. It's like it's big stuff, but I think you'll like it.
Yeah, high school was rough, man. No, yeah. Well, so you not only work with people in person, but you work with people virtually as well. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if parents are listening and they're saying, man, like I'm in this space, or maybe they will be, how can they find you, connect with you, all those things?
Great. So Courtney Harris Coaching on Instagram, on Facebook, and CourtneyHarrisCoaching.com. And I do, as you said, online coaching one-on-one, and I also do have an online parenting membership for parents of teens and tweens. So I would love to connect with listeners and love to hear about you and what you're up to in your life with teens and tweens.
Awesome. Well, before we leave, I have a last few questions to ask you that are totally about you. So if you could choose one of the most influential books that you've read, what would it be?
So just finished, but The Highly Sensitive Person by Elaine Aron. It's been a massive affirmation of, oh, this is like the blueprint of my life. This is me. I get it. Now I know who I am and who I was, like where some of the struggle came from. So it's been a huge tool, super useful with a lot of the clients that I work with as well.
So Highly Sensitive Person, is that for people who are sensitive then, like sensitive?
Yes.
There's okay.
Yeah, so there's actually like a little quiz you can take if you think you might be highly sensitive. There's another book, The Highly Sensitive Child. So there's lots of tools around this, but basically sensitivity. I mean, if you're a person that growing up, your parents were like, oh, don't be so sensitive, or, you know, you found yourself crying a lot, it could be you, right? I mean, I'm not diagnosing it, but it's definitely like, if you feel sensitive, this may be a good read for you. Or if you have a partner in your life or a child that seems to fall in this category, it can also be helpful for you to read to understand a little bit about what they're going through. Mm-hmm. And the same author, Elaine Aron, did write The Highly Sensitive Child as well.
Okay. Yeah. Because as soon as you said that, I'm like, well, you know, our daughter, I feel like I'm talking about her a lot today, but she is one of those, she wears her hearts on her sleeve. Mm-hmm. Her feelings get hurt very, very easily. And so, you know, if we're not that type of person, then when I approach her, I don't want to be like, well, toughen up, quit crying, you know, right? Because I can't change who she is, and I don't want her to feel bad for feeling those things.
Exactly.
So, that's okay. So, highly sensitive child. Okay.
Yes, and I'm doing audio, or I've done audio for it, so it's helpful that way. So if you like audio.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so next question. What is your favorite type of self-care, something that fills you up?
Definitely nature. I go on walks most days. I at least try to get out in the sunlight, and then when I can, weekend camping trips. I just feel like, oh, I'm buying time. That's all. That's always what I feel like when I'm camping. It just feels that I'm buying this extra gift of time to just be. And of course, I would love to feel that in every moment of every day. So the goal would be to translate that feeling into my every existence, but camping gives me that experience and helps me feel so present.
I do not get that experience from camping. I'm like, I love camping during the day, all day long, till late at night. But then the sleeping part, I'm not good with. I'm one of those people who, like, when I'm in a new space and I hear noises that I'm not used to, I like wake up at every moment. I'm like, what's that?
Oh, yeah.
What's that? What's that? So like we recently went camping and literally the whole night I was like, oh my gosh, what's that? What's that? What's that? And my husband was like, oh my gosh, if you don't go to sleep. And I was like, I can't help it.
Yeah, you like earplugs for camping.
Yeah, that would probably be the best idea, actually. If you could empower women in one way, what would it be?
Well, to be okay, to know that you are okay, to know that you are enough in whatever feelings that you're in. So just to like help women. Well, if I could wave a magic wand and just make it so that all women believed I'm perfect and okay how I am, that would be it. And so I think that comes through feeling brave and feeling safe to be vulnerable, to be in your feelings, to know that you're not too much or to know that you're not too sensitive or anything. Like, you are perfect as you are. And just to keep, I guess, the way to get to that state that we'd be in if there were my magic wand, just to keep telling yourself, I am enough. And maybe using that as a mantra to say to yourself when you don't feel like enough, or say it when you look in the mirror and you feel beautiful, and believe that from the inside out.
I need to do that myself.
Me too. Yes.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I think that you shared so many like valuable takeaways and just things that we need to think about as parents. And this was super valuable to me, so I know that it'll be super valuable to the listeners. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge with us.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for having this resource of the beautiful podcast, and thanks for holding space and sharing about your life too, Ashley.
Hey guys, I hope that episode was helpful to you. If you are a parent of a teen or tween, maybe you left this episode, or at least my hope is that you leave this episode like you have an extra tool in the shed to use, or you feel a little more confident in how you want to approach your teen. Maybe it's making you rethink the way that you are having a relationship with your teen or tween. Either way, if you guys want to read on more or learn more, you should definitely go and check out Courtney's blog at courtneyharriscoaching.com and then click on her blog tab. She has so many different situations, scenarios, feelings, and thoughts that teens might be going through, and then how you can deal with them, like how you can navigate through them. And it is a really good resource, so I really suggest you check it out. Until next time, I hope you guys have a great week, a great afternoon, a great evening, whatever. And I hope that you tune in next time. Bye, guys.